I have the honor to deliver this statement in explanation of vote on behalf of the African Group and in support of Draft Resolution A/72/L20, tabled by the delegation, titled Effects of Terrorist Acts Directed Against Religious Sites on the Culture of Peace. The African Group is of the considered view that the draft resolution is in affirmation of the principles of the Charter of the United Nations, whose core purpose is to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war and to maintain international peace and security, a fundamental prerequisite for nurturing inclusive and peaceful societies that can guarantee the fundamental rights of every individual and the survival of humanity. Sadly, far from achieving this universal goal, our world today is experiencing increasing acts of terrorism, extremism, and fundamentalism that threaten the values, attitudes, traditions, modes of behavior, and ways of life that make for a culture of peace. These enduring values are clearly elaborated by the 53rd session of the General Assembly in the Declaration and Program of Action on a Culture of Peace, and subsequently pursued during the ensuing International Decade for the Culture of Peace, and pursued during the Decade of the Culture of Peace and Nonviolence for the Children of the World, include the respect for life, commitment to peaceful settlement of disputes and conflicts, elimination of all forms of racism, racial discrimination, xenophobia, and related intolerance, and advancing mutual respect and understanding, tolerance, and solidarity among civilizations, peoples, and cultures, including towards ethnic, religious, and linguistic minorities. Mr. President, while the effects of terrorism in terms of lives lost and economic costs are devastating, their effects on the culture of peace are equally of concern and must be carefully evaluated and duly addressed by the international community. The resolution under consideration serves to send a strong message of condemnation of all acts of terrorism in all its forms and manifestations, wherever they occur, without exception, and to renew the commitment of the United Nations to strengthening international cooperation to prevent and to effectively combat the scourge. The heinous terrorist acts perpetrated on places of worship and on religious sites and communities around the world, such as the recent attacks in Egypt and in Nigeria, and their resulting loss of innocent lives, should be of concern to the international community, as they are likely to breed further hatred, intolerance, and violence if unchecked. It is critical that member states commit to appropriate measures to safeguard the sanctity of places of worship and to promote measures that will foster understanding, tolerance, and mutual respect in matters relating to religion and religious beliefs. The Africa Group therefore supports the call for strengthening international cooperation in order to enhance national capacities of states to prevent and effectively suppress international terrorism. We reaffirm the decision taken at the 62nd session of the General Assembly that encouraged member states to consider initiatives for practical action in all sectors and levels of society for the promotion of interreligious and intercultural dialogue, tolerance, understanding, and cooperation. We must devote adequate attention to this matter and support the inclusion of the question of the effects of terrorist acts directed against religious sites on the culture of peace and in the Secretary General's forthcoming reports relevant to this issue. Mr. President, it is often said, and it is worth repeating, that peace is not only the absence of conflict. Peace is more than that, and requires a positive, dynamic participatory process in all societies where dialogue is encouraged and conflicts resolved in a spirit of mutual understanding and cooperation. For these reasons, the African Group wishes to urge all delegations to give their full support to this timely resolution for its adoption by consensus. I thank you, Mr. President.